From Martine Studios in New York, your trending topic TV show. This is Talking Heads with Nizam.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Talking Heads. I'm your host, Nizam. I have my distinguished panel to my left today. We're going to jump right in. We have Mosley and Mr. Artie C. So let's talk. You know, my favorite segment of the show is What Are You Watching, Mouse? Let's talk about it.
So what am I watching? Sons of Anarchy. I'm almost finishing up on that.
Oh, is it? It's over though, right?
I think so.
Oh, you're binge watching?
I'm a little behind. And I'm actually a huge fan of Blackish.
Oh, okay.
I really am.
All right.
I think it's funny and it's clever.
I think Larry, I know him as Larry. I think Lawrence Fishburne, I don't think he's that old man, that black old man character yet.
No.
You know? Like I could see like John Witherspoon, you gotta coordinate.
Yeah,
like I could see like he's Morpheus, man.
But he's not even really in it as often as you think. So it's really not that big of a deal at all.
Yeah.
But the show has good values, and it does target the black family, but it also can
just be a normal show.
Just be a normal show. Yeah.
Yeah. I watch a couple episodes. It's
entertaining.
Larry Fishburne. I'm like, But Artie, what about you? What are you watching? Man?
You know, from the last time I was here, I actually switched over from watching. It was Philip DeFranco. I was telling you the last time, which was the YouTube channel. I'm actually watching Ancient Aliens on History too.
Oh, I love that show, man.
It's just so full of theories, and it makes you think a little bit. I mean, do I agree with all of them? No, but at the same time, it makes you really put thought into a lot of things that you don't normally think about. It's in its I think it's its 8th season, if I'm not mistaken.
That show is crazy, man, because they have, there's these hieroglyphics and these symbols and this stuff, and it's way before it's real civilization, and it's just
it just makes you wonder how so many things were constructed prior to modern times, even within the last
age,
2,000 years, how they mastered certain things. And, you look at the pyramids, like those are magnificent, like works that humans could put together, and this is before, and this is without machines. This is without modern machines. Like if you think about it, a pyramid is like, I think it's within 1/100th of an inch to perfection, which we couldn't even get today. We couldn't do it today if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's with the technology we have with computers. It's amazing to think about it.
Yeah, it's
a good show.
It is. Yeah, I've seen it a couple times. It's definitely interesting to sit down and be taken away by all that stuff that they're talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Anything else?
Other than that, just watching. I've been on this kick on the History Channel. I mean, I watch Pawn Stars.
Okay.
That's a good show. You get to see a lot of the artifacts that people bring in, a lot of things they want to pawn off, and some of the interesting values. You learn a little bit as well, and that's pretty much it. I mean,
is Oak Island, Curse of Oak Island, is that?
I have history? Yes, it is, and I actually have seen it.
It's in the 2nd season right now. I don't know if I could do it.
There's a theory behind what they do on the show. Well, not so much a theory. Excuse me. With a curse is actually something that they said a 7th man has to die in order for them to finally find the treasure. And 6 people have actually died, they're hoping they don't have a 7th man die and find it. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's in the 2nd season right now, and I don't know who, somebody put me onto it, and I'm big on conspiracy theories and history and the Freemasons and all that stuff, man. And I got hooked on the 1st season. I got to the end of the season, and I was like. So now it's in the 2nd season, so I'm debating on whether or not to get in, because I know once I get into that 1st or 2nd episode, they're going to frame it just right, and I'm just going to have to stay on. So
yeah, I'll be honest with you, they have a couple of really good shows to watch that make you think. They have the other show about giants, where they're hunting. I'm not saying I believe it, but I'll be. It's very interesting where the theory. I mean, we're talking about 2 amateurs that are actually, in my opinion, they're not into any kind of forensics or anything. But they're digging up stuff, and some of the stuff coming up makes you think a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
we'll
good
see.
shows.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm still on Scandal, of course. Watching Flash, Arrow.
Gotham's good.
Yeah, Gotham. I gotta catch up.
Gotham's good.
Gotham kind of lost me for a little while.
It'll grab you again. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll jump back on that. But all right, so let's get into this. All right, so our first topic of the night is the White Plains meter maid. So there's a guy, there's a parking official out there. He's 61 years old, and I guess he has allegedly propositioned a young lady and told her he would fix her ticket for sexual favors. Do you hear about this, Artie?
I did. I read it. I do have an opinion on it, but like I said, I did read up on it. I don't think it's been fully covered.
Yeah.
I think the public is already crucifying him without,
definitely.
Due process coming his way. So,
What about you? How you feel about it?
I've never been a fan of White Plains Parking Authority. So this was a great story for me. I don't care if he's being crucified because I've always had problems with White Plains Parking Authority, specifically White Plains Parking Authority. So I don't really think, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, especially with everything going on today, like it's just authority trying to, do more than what they should be, taking advantage of their power. Hey, it could have worked.
So the story goes that this guy he offered or suggested 10 acts.
10
acts for $20 for a $20
That's
ticket.
not even fair.
my whole thing is not that I'm, because I've had my issues with White Plains Parking Authority either, and I'm not a fan of them, but to his defense, you don't know what the other side of the coin had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He could have been legit, writing her a ticket, and she could have just come up and, "What are you doing?" and started yelling at him to take it back.
Which you've seen before.
And you've seen it many times, and not only just in White Plains, in other places. And one thing could lead to another, where she starts, maybe she cursed him out, and he, lost his temper and decided to say something in a reference to a sexual nature, and said, "You know what? Do this and this 10 times, and I'll take it away." Who knows,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, who's to say that he was in his right, but at the same time he might have lost his temper, and it got the best of him, and now he's in trouble.
Yeah. What's really bad about this is I always feel like where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
Whenever there's something going on. That what's really bad about these situations is we probably won't ever know.
Right.
And there's a 61-year-old man whose life is going to really dramatically change now.
Right.
Because of these allegations or whatever. But it's just it's a $20 ticket. And this guy is in jail, or he got out of jail. He's on like $1,000 bond or whatever. Right. But speaking of consequences and repercussions of things that you do, the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, St. Louis, there's a lot going on there. They came out a few weeks ago in a football game, and they threw their hands up, don't shoot. And I guess this is stirring a lot of controversy out there. The St. Louis Police Department take it as a slap in the face. The Rams players are saying it's peaceful protest. How do you feel about that, Mouse?
I applaud them for doing that, that is where everything is happening. And I think that it was a very smart idea for them. It is peaceful protesting. Just because they're doing that doesn't mean they're not harming anyone. They're not harming the league. They're not harming the team.
But what about the disrespect to the police of that city?
What about the disrespect that the police do to the people in the city? Obviously, it's evident. You see it. They're disrespecting the people. So why do they feel disrespected? It doesn't feel good, does it? That's what that would be my message to the police force. I'm like, they're all not like that. I know that.
Right.
There are good cops. There are good police officers. But to the ones that may or may not have disrespected people in those communities, it doesn't feel good, So maybe you should think about your actions before you do them.
Artie, what about you?
Every police department has their good and bad, I'm sure, But St. Louis Rams getting into the whole mix, being an NFL team, I think they could have had a different approach than to come out with their hands up, especially since a lot of players on the team, as well as ownership, coaches, were calling the St. Louis Police Department during these protests to get reassurance from the police department that their stadium would be adequately protected is a slap in the face of St. Louis Police Department. Why are you calling the police department to make sure that you get adequate protection, and then on national TV you put your hands up and gesture an insult to them? You might as well just not bother. If you think that your police department isn't doing this, then don't call them. Don't tell them, hey, listen, are we getting adequate protection? Because you're going to insult them. You understand? I'm not saying that, that they don't have a right to protest or do a peaceful protest, but I think as adult players, a lot of them college educated, they should know better in how to make a situation work to their advantage.
A lot of them went to college.
Right, exactly. And whether they graduate or not, they still have more education than somebody that didn't go to college. And they have a better understanding, and they know better. A lot of them know the consequences of their actions.
Right.
So in my opinion, they're entitled to their protest. But at the same time, don't call the police department and say, do we have adequate protection? Are we going to be okay while, the game is going on? Is there a chance that protesters are going to come here while our game and wreck the house?
Right.
And the police department is going to say, no, we have your back. We're going to protect you because you guys are our city team. So we're going to look out. And then you come out and do that on national TV. It's an insult.
Yeah, I think Mike Ditka weighed in and was kind of on the same vein of what you were saying. And he went further saying, if you limit the police's power, if you attempt to limit the police's power, things are going to get worse. And what I say to that is, if you don't want to limit the police's power that they have now, or more so, don't limit their training.
Right.
Because a lot of these things that are going on, whether it's Mike Brown, whether it's Trayvon, whether it's Tamir, the 12-year-old kid that just recently was shot point blank by the police because he had a gun.
Right.
Toy gun, whatever the case may be. There are some trigger-happy officers out there. And I think training is one of the things that will help eliminate some of these situations. I feel like the community is where the problem stems from. Not police, not black men, not criminals or thugs or whatever you want to call them. It stems from the community. I feel like police need to get out there and need to be the politicians of the streets. They need to be kissing babies and shaking hands and knowing these people by name. Maybe if that officer jumped out of the car and said, hey, Mike Brown, and knew that person by name, and Mike Brown knew Darrell Wilson by name, maybe it would be a different scenario. I was young. I'm still young, but I was in college.
Right.
I had to deal with police. I got noise ordinances. I got pulled over with a suspended license or registration. If you don't pay your speeding ticket when you're young and dumb, it's the same thing if you don't pay it when you're old and smart. So I've had to deal with the police, and luckily I've had positive experiences, but I've also had some negative experiences, but it didn't end in my death. But I feel like a lot of people are looking at the wrong things. I agree with you. Rams, they have some clout. They have some power, if you will, and they could probably have come up with something a little bit better than hands up, don't shoot.
Right.
Maybe they could have collaborated with. I feel like we had this conversation before with the last time you were on. Maybe the Rams could have collaborated with the police in that community, because there's a lot of black people that look up to those athletes.
Right.
So I think we're fighting the wrong fight. We're having the wrong conversations about all this stuff that's going on. I don't want to place blame on one group.
Right.
And I feel like
there's so many things that can be said, exactly like you just said. Police joining more into the community, but at the same time, parents also, raising their kids right. My parents raised me right. That still doesn't mean I didn't get in trouble.
Right.
Exactly. But I knew the consequences of my actions. I'm not saying that the end results of any of these incidents is what we all want. None of us want that. But there's always the root of the problem or how it started, and it could have been prevented. Like you said, there were instances where you had a positive outcome and you had some other negative outcomes, but fortunately, it never ended with something negative, like detrimental to you. You wouldn't be here today,
right.
And it's something that we have to really look at, not so much as from a political point of view, but as people in the communities, people owning up to how they raise their children, officers as well, embracing more of the community, like you said, getting to know people in their area more, personable, getting involved more with kids, maybe getting kids involved in more programs with police. We're not talking about like where they need to go to a classroom. We're talking about after school activities. Maybe we can get officers to come in and get to meet these kids when they're young and do basketball games with them and stuff like that to keep them, in the know and understand who these kids are. And, there's so many different things that can be done and they're not.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same thing as sort of how racism is. It's taught.
Oh, without a doubt, I agree with you.
Trying to get some of these urban kids to do these things with police will be extremely difficult because it's taught that don't trust the police from day one, and unfortunately, which I think a lot of people aren't understanding. I want to say more so toward white or anyone that's maybe not black, is that the conversation that my father had to have with me at an early age was how to act around the police. If you get pulled over, if you get stopped with your friends, what you should do to not escalate it like what happened to Mike Brown. And I think that's the problem, where that conversation doesn't need to be had with white kids. Most white kids, I want to say. I don't want to put them all in the same group, but I feel like it's so deep-rooted not to trust the police, especially in communities like Ferguson. How possibly can you start now to try to intermingle both of them without more problems happening? The only thing I can think of is by hiring people in those communities to become police officers so they understand that community. They grew up in that community. That way people will trust them because they're like, oh, you're from building blah, blah, blah. He might be a police officer now, but you know him before he was a police officer. Now, when you're hiring people from other communities and they come in and they don't really care about the people in the community, it's going to be very hard to be like, oh, Joe over here is a police officer of this station. These kids are from this school, kind of a bad area. Intermingle with each other, and so you could trust each other. I don't feel that's going to work.
I feel like you make a good point, but to your point, you have to start somewhere. You have to do something.
Yes.
Like I said, in my day when I was in college, I was a DJ. There was house parties. The person who is going to get in trouble is the person who is making the noise, and then the person who owns the apartment. So a lot of times I had to have a conversation or confrontation with police. And, maybe it's before 12, maybe it's before 11. What's the noise ordinance? Am I resisting arrest if I say, hey, it's 9:30? There's a noise ordinance for 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I'll turn it off then. I've had those interactions, and through a lot of those interactions, I got to know those police, and those police would come in and know me by name.
Right.
And there's a different conversation after that relationship was built. It was, hey, niece, do me a favor. I don't want to come back out here again.
I'm sure that does happen there, but
what I'm saying is, well, I agree with what you're saying. Let's hire in those communities. Let's get some people. Let's get some upstanding people in that community who will know the community, know how it works. I agree with that. But why can't everybody be like that? Get to understand that. And I feel like this is the conversation that we need to be having. If you go on Facebook, if you go on Twitter, you go on these social media sites, everyone's like, oh, he shouldn't have been selling cigarettes. boom,
But everybody on social media is a lawyer. Everybody knows the
Yeah,
law.
yeah.
Everybody.
Of course.
So what does it prove? It proves that a lot of people don't really know. They open their mouth without thinking.
But I feel like they are also regurgitating a lot of what the media is saying.
Of course.
They're not doing their own research. They're not like trying to walk in that, whether it's a cop or whether it's the black kid or black man that got shot. They're not putting themselves in that situation. They're not thinking it through. They're just regurgitating what's been posted or what's been said.
But the media is going to put out what sells, and what's going to sell right now is negative news on bad situations. If a Mike Brown situation is negative news, it is not good, and clearly you can see by the end results of what's happened, it's not good. But the media is selling it and will keep pushing it because that's their agenda, is to make money, to get views, to get people to watch.
And then they'll push the white and black difference.
Exactly. Instead of saying, well, let's put people on TV that could help the situation and maybe help come with results of ways to work. Like he suggested, okay, we started recruiting them in minority, neighborhoods. When I grew up, I'm Latin, so in my neighborhood, I didn't see a lot of recruitment in the Latin neighborhood where I grew up for cops. It's not to say that the police department wasn't doing it, but most of the kids that I grew up, they weren't interested with becoming cops. It's not what they were thinking.
Yeah, great point. Just because you don't see it or hear it from the mainstream media or whatever doesn't mean it's going on. What you're talking about, maybe they are trying to recruit in those communities.
Maybe.
But it doesn't sell. So they're not going to do it. Another argument is, oh, well, why is all this outrage about, this black person or that person when there's black on black crime in the south side of Chicago and blah, 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 blah. They've been fighting this for decades. This black on black crime, or let's just call it crime in those neighborhoods. There's been rallies. If you really want to go back and look 2010, 2002, they've been out there trying to fight black on black crime. Whether it's Jesse Jackson or Sharpton, and whether you like them or don't like them, they've been in the fight and they've been trying to do something. But I think the conversation really needs to be shifted. I think both of you guys make good points, and I feel like that's what it's about. Like, let's stop blaming everybody. Let's stop blaming black guys for being crooks and thugs. Let's stop blaming police for being trigger happy and racist, and be like, how do we change that culture? I think that's the conversation. So I want you guys to post that stuff on Facebook.
I hope so.
You got it.
All right, let's switch it up. We can talk about that all day. This is really funny. I saw this and I had to talk about it. So the Chinese government right now they are restricting the use of puns and irregular wordplay. I thought this was pretty funny. They are punishing the language, if you will. Artie, how do you feel about
I'm not. See, they're communists, so communist government has a different mentality. Just setting that off straight. But I understand where they're coming from with what they're trying to do. I read up on that whole thing about the puns, and with the Chinese language, when you change one character and you slip in another, it kind of means the same, but it takes a different tone. It could totally change, depending on the region you're from. It could totally change the meaning. Understand that, Chinese characters, if I'm not mistaken, there's 50,000 of them.
Yeah.
And out of 50,000 characters, the official language is Mandarin. But someone in Cantonese can read the same thing, and it means the same to them. If I write this series of characters and it means, go wash your hands, a person that speaks Mandarin, like a person that speaks Cantonese, will be able to read, go wash your hands, But how they pronounce it, totally different from one another. And that's where their barrier of language comes in. So when you change a character, there's a whole problem. And that's what the Chinese are trying to avoid, along with the spirituality that they have, and I understand. I say I understand that because when we speak Spanish, a word means one thing, but amongst Mexicans, for example, we have a tendency to change our words around, and it means a whole nother phrase from what what it could mean. Right. So if you're, for example, Puerto Rican or you're Colombian, and you read what I just wrote you read it as it is. You don't take anything But if he's Mexican and he reads it, he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
That happens.
So that I understand where the government is coming from, but do I agree with it? No, I don't agree with it, because that's obviously a show that they don't have freedom of speech, and everything is communist run, the way it is in their country,
What about you,
I mean, I don't think they should ban it. I don't understand why they can't do like what we do here, which is the FCC. That way, you filter it. They can do it, but you filter it and see, okay, what does this mean here? What does this mean here? What does it? No, you can't do that. Okay, this one, we see where you're getting at. Okay, that's okay. Just filter it. You don't need to ban it altogether.
Yeah.
Because that's that's really rash, and it won't work that way. So if you kind of like, all right, you could say this, but you can't say that. You could say this, but you can't say that in this region. That would work. But like you said, it's a communist. So I don't know what, I don't really understand.
Yeah, for writers, I don't know that writers. It was like advertising and writers is what I read when I was looking up on this. And like for writers, I don't know that. If I'm like a journalist or something like that, I don't know. I might use a pun in the headline, maybe, but I'm not gonna just I'm not gonna be like writing a bunch of in my because they were like, oh, it's gonna confuse the kids and stuff like that. But also I feel like if the kids if they're watching a commercial, I mean, like if you watch like UK commercials, like they're just like out there,
true.
So it's like but I feel like people know they're watching a commercial no matter how far it goes. So no matter what the translation is, when you're looking at advertising, I feel like as a teenager, you're gonna get it, or you're gonna understand it, or you're just gonna be like, I don't get it, and I'm not gonna buy that product or whatever. But I feel like they're going a little overboard with the whole.
A little bit. But
I think the Chinese within the next couple of decades are going to start changing a lot, only because that is coming from people that are a lot older, in their political system and in their communist system. Yeah. And as the younger generation comes in and they're introduced to more money, more ability, and more markets, their laws will change, and their views on communism will probably change. Maybe perhaps to more socialistic views, maybe to more democratic capitalism views.
Seems like it's going that direction.
But I mean, look at their market right now. I mean, they're a powerhouse.
Yeah.
They have 1.4 billion people.
Mad people.
You can't go wrong with that market. I mean, I wish I spoke Mandarin myself because that's a market you want to get into.
That is true.
It is, if I'm not mistaken, it is the #1 language in the world. Followed by English, Spanish, Hindu, and Arabic. Those are the top 5 languages in the world. Why wouldn't you want to speak the #1 language spoken in the world?
It's extremely difficult. It's difficult.
It's very difficult.
It's so hard.
Because if you want to learn Italian, French, Spanish, your characters are still the same as far as letters. Them, it's a whole
different ballgame.
That's crazy.
So,
all right. We have a little time left. I want to jump into Do You Care? You guys know this. I'm gonna throw a couple things at you. If you care, let me know. If you don't, let me know. And if you feel like you have to explain, that's cool. So Ryan Reynolds is dead. Pool. How you feel about that? Do you care?
A little bit. I mean, when the announcement of Heath Ledger being Joker came out, everyone was like, ugh, and then look what happened. So give him a shot.
Ryan Reynolds, do you care?
I could care less.
I could care less. All right, so Melissa Gorga, Housewives of New Jersey, she is not going to be hanging out with Teresa and Joe for the holidays. Do you care?
Again, another thing I don't care. I don't.
Come on, man. Melissa Gorga,
not
man.
1 bit.
I don't care.
Not 1 bit.
All right, okay. All right, so there's a study out there, sexsomnia. It's when you have sex when you're asleep. Do you care?
I don't see how that's possible. No, I don't care.
Do you care?
Do I care? No, I don't care.
I mean, you guys sleep, man.
Yeah, but you know what? If my girlfriend wants to jump on top of me,
you wake up.
Hey, listen, I'm not stopping her. You know what I mean?
All right.
So,
check that out, Sexsomnia. We got to get out of here. Check us out on Verizon 45, Cablevision 76, Friday tonight at 8 p.m. And you can check us on WPCommunitymedia.org. Guys, thanks a lot for coming out.
Of course. Thank you for having us.